Hi, everyone. Welcome to Spill the Tea Radio, where we interview awesome singer-songwriters and those who influence their lives. Spill the Tea Radio explores the journey, creativity, and inspiration behind the songs. My next guest is a proud member of the Blackfoot and Jamaican communities. She is a Canadian R&B sensation and is quickly rising to be one of the country's most promising talents. If you watch Canadian football, you've probably heard her belt out our national anthem at a Calgary Stampeders football game. So, let's spill the tea with Justine Tyrell. Welcome, Justine.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here, and that intro is so great. I'm like, you follow me around and always just intro me like that. That's great.
Well, you've got a lot of stuff going on, and it's our first interview, so we've got a lot of ground to cover in our interview, including how you got that gig singing the national anthem for the Calgary Stampeders. Because you do that, people will understand that you are in Calgary. You live in Calgary, and we're going to talk about the music scene out there as well. First, let's chat about your background as far as interest in music. Your dad was a rapper,
Yes, he was.
and so I would say that that may have had an influence on your music career. But tell us about the influences when you were younger and thinking about getting into music. And certainly interested to hear about Dad the Rapper.
Yes, I am really glad that you bring up Dad the Rapper because that still is a topic of debate, question, inquiry, all the things in our family where I think he would for sure say that's where I got my musical talent. My mom will probably for sure say not. And she would say it's from the musical influences that I grew up listening to. And for me, I think it's a bit of both. Um, Clearly there's something that probably runs in the family with some music there. But the thing that I remember the most about how my parents influenced my music is just what they exposed me to.
Mhm.
It was such an eclectic musical upbringing where, my parents were playing Aaliyah and, just like that really good silky R&B, a lot of Mary J. Blige. When the John Legend record came out, we played that one until the CD was hot. Not to date myself, but until the CD was quickly hot to touch. And then on my mom's side, it was a lot of great music like the Eagles and the Beatles and Elvis Presley. So yeah, it started young. The seed was definitely planted young. And then around seven, I'd say 7 or 8 years old is when I first started writing music and realized that through singing along to songs, I was like, you know what? I kind of don't sound half bad. I mean, I'm seven, so I don't have a great gauge, but I felt like I realized I can kind of sort of blend and imitate the voices of some of these artists that I was hearing. And I thought, okay, I might not be horrible at this. And I loved it. Like my parents put me in lessons early on, and growing up, I probably did lessons till about 12 or 13. I auditioned for Canadian Idol and made it through a few rounds with that. So it was just always that thing that I loved. And to know that it was my dad's path for a while too, I think that there definitely was something running in the family for sure.
Well, if he wants to get back into it, I think Dad the Rapper is a great name.
Could you
I
imagine the rapper?
Dad the Rapper.
That
I think,
that is
um, and you can let him know that's my gift to him.
There
He's
you go.
welcome. He's welcome to use it.
Say Merry Christmas. This is for you.
That's right. That's right. You mentioned Canadian Idol. I just finished up an interview with Omar Lunan, who was also on Canadian Idol, and he shared his experience with that. Share your experience with about being on Canadian Idol. Like, how did you get there? I mean, we know that there are hundreds, thousands of people that they interview and audition in order to get to that final 200 people. So tell us about the experience. How did you get involved?
Yeah, I'd say the story of how I got involved is probably more interesting than the story of when I actually started making it through the rounds because I was working as a hostess at the time at a restaurant downtown Calgary called Earl's. I was a hostess. And musically, like personality wise, I've always been pretty outgoing, but musically in terms of singing in front of people, I was still really shy.
Mhm.
So I'd heard Canadian Idol was coming to town, and to be honest with you, I didn't want to audition because I was just too scared. So one of the judges at the time, named Farley Flex, came in and
Yeah.
had, and I didn't realize that. Like I was just busy doing my thing. And his server, or yeah, I think it was his server or one of the gals who was running food, something like that, said to him, "We have a hostess and she's great and we think she should try out." And so Farley said, "We'll send her over here." So I go over there, Saturday night, packed restaurant, like every table's full. And he asks me a few questions and says, like, "Well, you want to try it? Well, why don't you sing here? And I'll, give you some tips," and kind of thinking, like, this is my workplace. It is full. I'm terrified. I don't know
Ah.
what to sing. Because of course your mind goes blank in those moments. And so he's ironically enough now, he says, "Well, why don't you sing our Canadian national anthem?" Little did we know I'd become an anthem singer. And so I did. I think I did terribly, to be honest with you, but apparently it wasn't as bad as it felt. And he said, "Yeah, no, I think you're great, and I really think it's worth coming out." And so I did, and I made it through four of the rounds, but I actually got cut just before the round where it's the group that goes to TV.
Right.
And it was such a learning experience. I was, I think, 16 at the time. I cried in my audition. I kept forgetting the words. All of the things that could happen happened. And some of the judges had some great feedback. They said, it's you've really got to get your confidence locked in. When you forget your lyrics on stage in the real world scenario, you don't get to start again. You don't get to stop and go and do all of that. So when I didn't make it through, I was like, "That's it. I'm never singing again. I'm done." And the whole like dramatic 16-year-old.
Let's talk about the Calgary Stampede gig and how you ended up being the national anthem singer for Calgary. It wasn't just a one and done. You did it for quite some time. That is a kind of gig that you don't come out of the gate and perform for a week and then call up the Calgary Stampeders and say, "Hey, I'd like to sing the national anthem."
Yeah,
There's a little
exactly.
more to that, a little more
There's a little more
preparation,
to it.
a little more to it. Tell us about how you ended up on the big stage there.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, now that my brain is coming off the trail of the Canadian Idol thing, I'm thinking maybe Farley Flex was onto something when he told me to sing me the national anthem, which for the record, by
Right?
the way, he is phenomenal, amazing. So I will even say maybe he subconsciously pointed me in the right direction. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that was, for me, it felt like it was years in the making. I had many, many, many years prior to getting that gig, I had auditioned for the NHL as well. And the CFL was the same thing. It was an audition process. They put out an open casting call. And I auditioned almost for a year. And so they were
Yeah.
kind of, they had their big pool and then they shrunk it down to kind of their final picks. And then myself and the other final pick, we would alternate games through the season. And before the audition, it was a whole thing. I was sick. I actually ended up in the hospital the night before
Oh
and
no.
went straight from the hospital to the audition. I'm on the phone, like crying to my mom. I'm like, "Mom, there's no way. Like, I can't do this." And I'm auditioning in the rain, and this is terrible. Mascara tears running down my face, like the worst of the worst in terms of preparation. I rolled into that thing like a hot mess and was sure. I was sure I never had a chance. And yeah, I auditioned, I gave it my all, made it down to the final two. And then at the end of the season, they said that we would love to offer it to you. And that was 9 or 10 years ago. So I've been doing it
Wow.
for a long time. And it's still on the topic of overcoming stage fright when it comes to singing, that was probably my best and sharpest lesson. Because prior to that, I'd never sung in front of even a fraction of that size of an audience. And when McMahon Stadium is full, it's 30,000 people.
Yeah.
So if you got stage fright, you got to go get over it real quick. And Yeah, it is still one of the greatest honors of my career to be able to do that and to go from auditioning in my basement and uploading YouTube videos and crossing my fingers and all the things to now having done the CFL and some games for the NHL. So it's pretty amazing.
Now, you mentioned stage fright and singing in front of 30,000 people, and it's not like you have a band to,
No,
to back you up
no.
behind. It's you. You're on stage. And we know that Canadians are not the loudest anthem singers in the world. You're pretty reserved. You might hear the "Oh Canada." You might hear somebody in the background like that. So you are it. You're carrying the whole show. How do you deal with that performance anxiety? How did you get past that over the years?
Yeah, great question. Because to be honest, I haven't really gotten past it, but I've gotten comfortable with it. I think the first few times I was like heart beating out of my chest. I always say this and then have a caveat of I should probably call a doctor after, but sometimes my left arm would go tingly and there was
Oh,
like
no.
all physical stress was happening. And I'm thinking, this might be a panic attack. This might medically not be good. The first few times that happened, I thought it was because, if I'm feeling this way, that must be a bad feeling. I'm
Mhm.
scared to do
Mhm.
this. And then as time went on, obviously the physical reaction was a little less intense, but I realized nerves to this level, it's not a bad thing. It really just reiterates how much I care. And I care so much about delivering it properly, about not letting my mind wander to, whoa, this is such a cool opportunity that I forget a lyric or two, because I know we've seen that happen. And anthems are just such a challenging thing when you're in the moment. Um, yeah, so I think that I just over time told myself, you know what? The record shows that when I go out there, I do a good job. And we have a great moment with 30,000 people, which is amazing. And it put enough distance behind between the fear that I'm going to screw this up and then the proof that like, no, 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 usually I do a good job. So yeah, I guess that the short answer is I've kind of just gotten used to it over time and recategorized it from fear that this is all going to go badly to, okay, nerves that I'm excited
Mhm.
because I really, really care.
Let's get into one of the songs that Justine wrote. If you constantly put others first and feel taken advantage of, you will relate to this song. Let's take a listen to singer-songwriter Justine Tyrell and her song, Last.
Agreeable, so me and oh, so backs against the wall. My feet are sore, my hands are cold from rows that on my own. I smile and tell my mind it wasn't critical by keeping you alive. I'm so agreeable, but rolling back the clock, it wasn't me at all. On fire just to keep somebody warm. I did it for the first time and the last. I thought it'd be irrelevant. Thought it's for the hell of it. The worst times be the past. Caught up in the elements. Feeling fucked up and I knew it. Not the bad one and you proved it. Didn't mean much and you knew that. I did it for the first time and the last. I thought it'd be irrelevant. Yeah. Say you won't have me like ride or die. You really got me on the other side. Let me see it goes till you needed me. How you do the most when you do the least. Smile and tell my mind it wasn't critical by keeping you alive. I'm so agreeable, but rolling back the clock, it wasn't me at all. On fire just to keep somebody warm. I did it for the first time and the last. I thought it'd be irrelevant. Thought it's for the hell of it. The worst time be the past. Caught up in the elements. Feeling fucked up and I knew it. The bad one and you proved it. Didn't need much and you knew that. I did it for the first time and the last. Thought it'd be irrelevant.
That was Last by Justine Tyrell. Justine, tell us about that song and what was the inspiration to write it.
Mm. That song I couldn't quite tell if what I was going through in life influenced the song or if the song kind of just made me more aware of what I was going through in life. So I don't know which came first, chicken or the egg, but started the song months before we finished it up. And it was kind of just from the feeling of being a people pleaser, whether it's relationships, business, just times where I ignored my intuition. And I just felt like I'm so sick of it. And I'm so, yeah, I'm sick of being that person that sometimes can light myself on fire to keep other people warm. So the idea was like, I did it for the first time and the last time. And we started this song with my co-collaborator, Matt Zodeman, producer out here. And we left it for a while just to circle back to it. And then I started kind of going through those feelings again in life. And it just was that perfect time to revisit the song. And with that one, we usually will go in with some kind of reference of let's make a song that's sort of this style or this type of mood. And with this, we just approached it like a playground and we found a couple samples that inspired us and just said, no rules, let's just see what we come up with. And so Matt on a production side was putting in the spooky harmonic element. He's putting in drill beats from the UK that we've never ever dabbled in. And for me, I mentioned earlier that I'm kind of duality. So there's this bubbly, bright side, but there's also this darker, spookier, more melancholy side. And I really love like Tim Burton and Danny Elfman's work on Nightmare Before Christmas soundtrack. And so a lot of the harmonies that I built in that song were very much inspired by that movie and by Danny Elfman's work. So all in all, that song was a playground, but it was talking about like, don't let people mess with you. The first time, great, but the second time, that's the last. That's it.
How do people find out more about you, Justine? What's the website? What are the socials? Where can they go to find out more about you and your music?
Yes. So website, they can find me at www.justinetyrell.com. And then social media, I'd say Instagram is definitely my platform of choice, but on all of the things, it's at Justine Tyrell.
We've been in conversation with Justine Tyrell. Justine, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much. That was great.